The most gut-damaging food in the world is not something that's destroying your microbiome. It's not diet soda. It's not one of these things that's just wreaking havoc on the microbiome. When I'm talking about the gut, I'm literally talking about the gut, not the bacteria that live in the gut. I'm talking about the actual gut. And the single worst food is one that we probably grew up eating quite a bit of. And it's one that we probably see occasionally, and we really need to understand what it is. And it's not so much the food itself, it's a compound that is in this food. And if you learn this, you're gonna know where to look for it. But I'm also going to give you a playbook on how to repair it after you've consumed it, or after even a lifetime of potential damage from consuming it. So let's go ahead and dive in. After today's video, I put a link down below for LMNT Electrolytes. Now, with that link, you get a free variety pack. So you get a free sample pack, but also they have just launched their chocolate caramel seasonal flavor. So this flavor is unreal. Like, we're talking something that only has a couple calories, and it's an electrolyte, but it's chocolate caramel flavor. So you could mix it with hot water, you could mix it with cold water, but if you mix it with hot water, it ends up tasting like caramel hot chocolate. And you're also getting 1,000 milligrams sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. This stuff is off the charts delicious. And again, we're talking a couple of calories. This is something that would be completely fine to have if you're fasted, completely fine to have if you're intermittent fasting, and it's something that you can have in between meals that's gonna make it feel like you're eating something and enjoying something delicious. So it's really easy to control your calories a little bit more when you're consuming this thing. So this is a seasonal flavor that is just now launching. So make sure you check it out. Again, you also can get that free sample pack. So whenever you make any purchase using that link down below through drinklmnt.com/Thomas, you will get a free variety pack. So if you go and you buy the chocolate caramel salt, you can still get the free variety pack that has all the different flavors in it that you can maybe give to a friend or be greedy and save it for later. So that special link is down below in the description. Get festive and get ready. Okay, drinklmnt.com/Thomas. So there was a study that was published in Molecular Nutrition. Now, full disclaimer, this was in vitro, okay? So with in vitro stuff, it means we're looking at cultured cells. But in order to understand the gut mucosal layer and the actual junction proteins, a lot of times we have to do this in vitro, at least first, right? The ingredient in question is Polysorbate 80, which is technically an emulsifier. And one of the most common foods that it is in is pudding cups. Yes, pudding cups. Now, Polysorbate 20 was in another study that was just as bad, and Polysorbate 20 you're gonna find in like processed cakes and pies. Remember those old like home run pies type things? So it's an emulsifier that blends water and oil together. So it allows water and oil to mix. The reason that this is detrimental for the junction proteins is because it can actually break down the mucosal layer. In a weird sort of way, the mucus is almost like a fat, like an oil and a water mixed together, right? So when you have an emulsifier, you're kind of undoing that to a certain degree. Now, that's not the only point of it. Okay, with this particular study, they found that just 0.2% Polysorbate 80 made the gut more permeable and damaged the protein junctions. So you've got these junctions of protein that are in your gut, and they are slightly permeable. And when they're permeable, you absorb nutrients, you absorb fluids. But when they become damaged, you have big gaping holes. So I want you to imagine that you built a boat, okay? And you were putting like all these pieces of wood together and hoping that they seal, okay? You're always gonna have a certain degree of permeability, right? But let's imagine for a second that these boards didn't line up and you had big gaps. A lot of water is gonna come through and that boat's gonna sink quite a bit, right? Now, this is gonna happen in your gut, except you're gonna absorb things like allergens and whatnot. Now, what made Polysorbate 80 particularly bad though, is that it didn't just damage the proteins. It didn't just damage the actual gut layer. It damaged and affected the protein expression, the gene expression for these proteins, so they had a hard time coming back. So it actually changed the gene expression that created these junction proteins in the first place. Now, in the case of Polysorbate 20, this is happening a little bit differently because this happens more as an inflammatory response. So you get so much inflammation that it actually causes cellular damage. So what do you do to avoid this issue? Well, first and foremost, If you eat foods that have emulsifiers in them, I'm not saying you completely throw them away and get rid of them, but it doesn't make sense to really have them in your diet. But we do need more literature to really come out with this. Now, what I do suggest is that you take all kinds of measures rather to modulate inflammation within your gut. Now, one of the first things that I would suggest is to support our gut mucosal layer, try adding in bone broth. Bone broth helps support the gut mucosal layer. It's actually good for the gut itself, and I'm not talking about the microbiome, we're talking about the gut layer, right? Okay, so bone broth, because of the collagen, can help support that, right? Collagen is a huge part of the gut. That's why they say collagen protein is straight up good for the gut. So collagen protein, bone broth, these things are good. Now, another thing that you can do to sort of modulate inflammation, adding turmeric into the diet. Okay, this has been shown to modulate inflammation via curcumin at sort of a master level, what's called nuclear factor kappa B pathway, but also very much so directly. When it makes contact with the epithelial cells, okay, with the enterocytes, it can actually help heal that and modulate inflammation along the way as well. High fiber diets, okay, so eating a lot of fiber to help the gut produce butyrate. Butyrate in itself is very healing. These short chain fatty acids reduce inflammation not only throughout the body, but also in the gut too, okay? So I'm not saying you can go eat a pudding cup as long as you add a bunch of like chia seeds to it, but if you're craving pudding, one of the best things you might want to do is go the literal opposite and make a chia pudding. Because the reason that you're getting that gelatinous kind of feeling with sort of a pudding cup is because you're literally mixing oils and water, and you're making an oil-water mixture, which is pudding, right? So it's in its very nature. But at least with chia seeds, you're getting that same consistency just through the gelatinous nature of the chia seeds. It's one of the biggest hacks that you could have for your gut. You get to have your pudding, and then it also has a gut healing effect as well. So I highly, highly recommend that. As always, keep it locked in here on my channel, and I'll see you tomorrow.